On today's episode, we're talking with JW Wiseman, the founder of Curious Elixirs, one of the first non-alcoholic craft cocktail brands in the world. What began as kitchen experiments has since grown into a brand that's shaped the growth of the global non-alcoholic beverage category. JW launched Curious Elixirs back in 2015 with a single goal: to make social drinks feel elevated, intentional, and fun, all without the hangover. According to entrepreneur.com, Curious Elixirs has generated over $50 million in revenue in the last 5 years, scaling to north of 8 figures annually, all without a single dollar of outside investment. Best part is the brand is still scaling to new heights and is on track to reach $176 million in revenue by 2030, holding its place at the forefront of the global non-alcoholic revolution. This is a story about creating a category from nothing, scaling a brand without investors, and proving that discipline and creativity can change behavior, not just a business. JW, it's an honor to have you on the show, and welcome to the Brand Study.
Oh, Conrad, thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
I would love to hear everything from start to finish, but before we get into that, I would love to learn and just hear about the current products that you all are selling for those that are not familiar with the brand.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'll start with one of our recent ones. We release one new elixir a year. We've been in business for 10 years now. And this one that I have today is Curious number 9 that I'm going to pour. So this is our sparkling rosé with key lime and canna. And have you ever heard of canna before?
No, that's new. That's new to me.
Yeah, Kanna. And it's a plant from South Africa that's been traditionally used as a mood elevator. It's both as medicine and kind of used ceremonially as well. And it's like a natural SRI, a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So cheers to getting lifted without getting wasted, you know?
I love it. I love it. That's so cool to hear. And is that so? It's not just non-alcoholic cocktails. Are you infusing other actives to give some sort of benefit and different feelings in one of your products? Okay.
All real ingredients, all real plants, nothing synthesized in a lab. So you're going to get, basically, this is Chardonnay grapes from California infused with actual roses, and then also the canna that I was talking about, which is like a mood lifter, along with California poppy to kind of gently unwind the body to kind of relieve tension. So it's got a few different things in there. Also echinacea for immunity, which also gives it, kind of plays into like a few different flowers coming together to give this lovely rosé without it being, too traditional of a rosé, right? All of our drinks are supposed to be evocative of experiences maybe you've had before or drinks you've had before, but in a new context, something a little different. We're not trying to imitate alcohol. We're trying to make something that's elevated and has a beginning, middle, and an end to it, so that as a guest, as a person unwinding at home, you get to explore it like on a flavor journey too, and be like, wow, I can really taste different parts of the earth in this. This is incredible. What's going on here? That's really what we're trying to do, is blow people's minds by making incredible, different non-alcoholic drinks.
Yeah. And I think that really taps into the movement and really what people are looking for. I mean, the research is out that people are drinking less. That's not a shocker at this point. And are you seeing that? I'm wondering if it's like a chicken or the egg scenario. Like, do you think people are understanding that alcohol is just not good for you? Or do you think that there's all these new amazing products that are coming out and people are just naturally gravitating towards those?
I think it's been coming out from people themselves for many, many years. And this is a big generational shift across actually multiple different generations. When I first researched the numbers back in the early 2010s, there were already 75 million adult Americans who didn't drink alcohol at all, even then. And there were another 90 million Americans who drank 2 or fewer drinks per week. What's happened is, in that 90 million, that's grown. And then also there's people who went from that 90 million and now don't drink at all, because they just were like, and that's been kind of my trend. I was really, before there was the term sober curious, we were making Curious Elixirs, and I was a sober curious person without having that term, not knowing what that was. I had just taken my alcohol down without being like 100% sober. And now that has accelerated because it's become kind of much more acceptable to just choose not to drink for 100 different reasons. It's not necessarily, recovery. It's not necessarily because you're pregnant. It's not necessarily because you're training for a marathon. It's not necessarily because you're watching your weight. It's a bunch of different reasons, or you want better sleep. There's a ton of different reasons that people are waking up to, like, hey, how much alcohol do I really want in my life? They're asking themselves this question. And that's what I was asking myself, and that's why I named it Curious, because I just had questions about, like, what do I really want out of a drink? Can it make me feel good without having a hangover and without a bunch of sugar in it? Let's see if we can make something that does that. So that's really where it started. It started with a bunch of questions.
Yeah, interesting. And I was, doing some research. I came across an article that you're quite the cocktail connoisseur. Like you were in the scene, you enjoyed cocktails, you knew what a good tail was.
Love cocktails. Yes. Love cocktails, wine, craft beer, anything liquid, or really anything that you taste. Like flavor slut to the max. That is just kind of like my MO through life. In travel, it's I want to explore history and culture, but oftentimes it's through the lens of food. Like food history, food culture, is how I kind of go deep. And whether it's across America while I was, working for Thrillist, which, like learning all about bar and restaurant culture all over America, and then getting to travel, to a few countries and see it. I mean, you can see the influences, of kind of like Turkish culture into this one, for example, with the rose infused. But it's also California culture and French. It's kind of like melding all of these different, notes together, because I was a huge cocktail and drink nerd. I still am.
Was there a turning point for you personally where you're like, okay, like you mentioned, you're curious about reducing alcohol intake. Was there like a turning point where like, okay, I think this needs to be taken more serious, like personally, to stop drinking as much?
Yes, there was a very clear moment. And that was one night I had 20 drinks in one night, alcoholic drinks. And I woke up the next day and I had no hangover. And I said,
Oh, wow.
that is probably not great for my body that I can do that. Hungover. And that was just my particular story where it scared the crap out of me after being able to drink so much and not have it completely destroy me the next day. I was like, that's borderline a problem. Let me take this down. And that was the moment where the seeds of Curious were planted, because I started drinking less. Like I was like, okay, I'm not going to drink Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at all. Because I researched, I'm like, how long does it take alcohol to metabolize out of the human system? My theory being, if I metabolize all of it out of my system and have a few days with it not in there, then I'll become a cheap date and be able to just have a couple drinks and feel great. Um, and that was true for me, but I kind of tested into it. And on those days when I wasn't drinking, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, the first few years, this is back in 2012, the first few years, I was like, I got bored of just having club soda with bitters, and a lime, and, being a huge cocktail nerd, and I'm going to all these fancy places that, have incredible food and nothing if you're not drinking. And that was really the state of affairs. And I was like, this is the culture that we need to change. We need to transform how we drink socially. And to me, I started by just making different brews and taking them to parties in Brooklyn or Queens or whatnot. And then I just kind of had a moment where I realized at one particular party that they drank all of the non-alcoholic, like Curious Elixir, and there was still lots of booze, but that stuff was all gone, like very quickly. And I was like, oh, they don't even care that it's not alcoholic, 'cause I didn't label it. It was just like people were drinking it because they really liked it, and because it had like that tang and that beginning, middle, and an end that I always talk about. So those were some key moments where I was like, maybe this is a business, not just like a trend in my particular life.
Yeah. Yeah. You notice these, these traits that are happening personally. And then you're like, oh wait, I think maybe other people are maybe experiencing a similar problem. And yeah, I mean
Yeah.
the club soda and lime, like if you're at an amazing restaurant, it's the pairing, it's the experience. Like cocktails and alcohol really do add to the experience, and it's not necessarily the
Yes.
alcohol. It's like the flavors and I think that's so fascinating. How so when you were crafting the first batch of Curious, was feeling and intention always something that was core, or was it more just about the flavor? Like, were you always adding adaptogens and interesting herbs to
Yeah.
your mixes? Okay.
Yes, very early on, I was mixing herbal remedies or functional herbs and plants in there because I was just seeking out what's possible in aroma, in infusions, and very quickly, when you study the history of alcohol, you're going to it's perfectly intertwined with natural remedies and folk medicine and traditional usage in every culture in the world. So you're very quickly going to have functional herbs like a lot of brands these days like to say that they invented the non-alcoholic cocktail with adaptogens and nootropics and stuff like that. And we were the first to popularize it, but it's been going on in traditions across the globe for millennia. So for anybody to say they invented this is just a farce. And it's really funny when they do that. But that is something that is so core to what we do. That's why these are elixirs. The function is what's right after the flavor. So it's in the name. The drinks taste curious and they are elixirs. Like that's what we're going for. It's flavor first. Function is baked in though there under the surface. And that's kind of the secret mission of Curious Elixirs is to give people an avenue to explore what different functional herbs and plants feel for them in low doses that are not going to like blow your hair back, but it's going to subtly make you feel good, yeah, and support your body in like finding harmony. That's what we're doing. And I think a lot of people now are starting to get hip to it in terms of functional herbs and functional drinks. Because we've been using functional drinks for thousands of years as humans, tea,
Oh
coffee,
yeah,
all of that stuff.
all of that functional mushrooms, all of
I
that.
love functional mushrooms. We use them too in Curious Zero.
Interesting, interesting. So that was your first one, was Curious Zero, I'm assuming.
Curious Zero is actually our most recent one. But it kind of goes all the way back to the beginning because my first brewing actually was with my dad brewing beer, back in the day,
Oh, okay.
in our kitchen, and, my dad was a super interesting guy. And he loved to cook and to brew beer. And even like when in college, he brewed his own beer and they called it Bill Weiser. So ridiculous.
No,
But he was kind of the first person that also showed me that you can take your drinking down. Like he had an alcohol issue and needed to like get completely sober for a number of years, and then later in life he was able to drink a little bit and kind of keep it just a little bit. But everybody's different. Some people, like it's very like a light switch on or a light switch off, you know, or like myself, I'm on the spectrum of like, I can just take it down 99% and have one drink a month and it better be spectacular.
that'd be a good one.
Yeah. But Curious Zero, yeah, that's the most recent one. I did 1 through 9 and then release 0 for our 10th one. And it's going back to the basics of brewing, but it's our lion's mane lager. So it's a very, kind of classic flavor that is a little bit different in that it has this lion's mane mushroom to boost your brain and maca root to lift your libido. So, and that's something, and it kind of boosts energy and helps with muscle recovery and stuff too. Maca root does. It's an adaptogen that helps you in a few different ways. Much like lion's mane helps you in a few different ways in your brain. Yeah, which is awesome. I take lion's mane every day. By the way, do you take any adaptogens or functional things?
It depends. So, for immunity, I'll take like a reishi mushroom, or like there's a brand called My Community, and it's like a blend of like 9 different, it's like reishi and lion's mane, turkey tail. So I'm a big proponent of functional mushrooms for sure. On the daily, let me think. On the daily, I don't think I do. I take a supplement called Boswellia that's more for like anti-inflammatory. I think that's more like a curcumin blend, but yeah,
Boswellia?
Boswellia. Yeah,
Is that an ingredient or a brand name?
it's a product name, I believe.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's an Ayurvedic from an Ayurvedic brand. But yeah, I'm a tall guy, played a lot of sports, so I got to keep the inflammation low. And personally, I've noticed with alcohol, I would say, yeah, similar to you, like probably around like when had my daughter, she's almost 2.5 now. I was like, I can't wake up and feel even 90%. Like I need to be 100%, from 5:30 to 9 p.m. And even just having like one or two drinks, like just disrupting my sleep a little bit. I'm like, this just isn't worth it at all. So I would say I've pretty much
Totally.
cut my alcohol intake by, yeah, probably like 90, 95%. Maybe I'll have a beer once in a while, but yeah, it's just not something that I see contributing to my goals in life. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, if something's not going to contribute to me personally, contribute to my family, contribute to the well-being, of the people around me, then I'm just gonna cut it out. And I've kind of taken that approach to like food as well, like
Yes.
trying to cut out unhealthy foods and eliminate seed oils and things like that. But yeah, trying to get onto supplements and just being intentional around that. And I've definitely started exploring some non-alcoholic options because yeah, I'm pretty pretty bored of just ordering a club soda for, especially if we're out at a really nice restaurant.
Well, it is my job to solve that for you. So, Khalil, that Curious Elixirs are en route to you. I heard from the team; they are coming your way.
I love it. I
You'll,
love it. I'm excited. I'm really excited.
and we're working to get to more restaurants too. Like you're talking about, because that's the next 10 years. Of like our work is getting into every different part of life where you can add a little more joy by having different options.
Did you mention history? You've clearly done research on herbs and Ayurvedic medicine. And
Yeah.
is this something, are you someone who's just always, I mean, you have curious in the name, but it's clear that you personally are curious and are a student. Did you go and do all of this additional research to find the history and find these adaptogens and these beneficial herbs? Like what did that look like after that party? You're like, okay, people drank this elixir that I made. Like, what happened next after that?
Well, after that, because that particular party was at Playland Motel in Rockaway Beach, New York City,
Okay.
and that was kind of a eye-opening, time right after Hurricane Sandy, and this is like the summer afterwards, right? And it's kind of rebuilding, and Rockaway got hit particularly hard. Um, and with seeing everybody kind of having a great time drinking this thing that they're not getting drunk on and that is actually making their bodies feel good. Um, that particular elixir, I was like, okay, there's something else here. I need to investigate this further. That's actually when I went and did the research on like how big could this opportunity be? How many people don't drink? How many people are drinking less? You know, quantified that. And then I looked into, some of my favorite drinks from across my drinking history. I kept a cocktail journal for many years. And so I could look back at the drinks that I loved and which ones, were amazing, which ones were classic, which ones were, a little out there, because like our drinks they're both classic and there's some that are like really out there. Like Curious number 5, I made because of a drink that I had in Miami called the Cocoa Puff Old Fashioned. And it was like nostalgic and adult and delicious and unusual, playful. It's all of the things that I love, in cuisine and culinary experiences, wrapped up into one. Nostalgia, but something new. Um,
Yeah.
and that's what we did with Curious number 5. I tried to make it's our smoked cherry chocolate old fashioned. So it's almost like a
Mm.
cherry chocolate cake meets a whiskey drink, you know, um, but using Ayurvedic shatavari which is a traditional aphrodisiac and kind of helps promote hormonal balance in men and women, and then elderberry and ginger for immunity. So it's kind of this like very body nourishing, cozy feeling. to this drink, where you have it, you slow down and you have it. It's a slow sipper. And that's something else that I wanted to provide, as opposed to something kind of light and bright, which is also fantastic if you want to feel energized and you want to feel like up. So I wanted people to have a choose your own adventure, in terms of feeling, but always through the lens of flavor first, because that's the key to enjoyment is, first make it beautiful, then make it taste good, and then make it so that it feels good. That's the triad of making a curious elixir.
Yeah, that's a secret recipe right there. And then was there any other validation? Did you go and start brewing other elixirs and people were giving feedback? And then did you find co-packers? Did you start manufacturing yourself? And yeah, how did you actually get this off the ground? Because it's so craft, it's the intention and the details behind it are so clear.
Yes. Well, obviously I was brewing in my kitchen to start, and then I found, you know, and this is my kitchen in the Hudson Valley, upstate New York. And I was kind of splitting time between there and Brooklyn. And so up there in the Hudson Valley, there's a long tradition of craft makers, and people doing things from kind of farm to table, even before there was the term farm to table. So I looked into Hudson Valley Table magazine, and there was an article about a guy making infused syrups in Beacon, New York. And I tracked this guy down after, as I say, hey, I checked out your article. I heard you have a commercial kitchen on Main Street in Beacon. Do you want to collaborate on something? And so we knocked our heads together, along with, I had kind of a council of herbalists and bartenders, from Michelin star places, and even just great sommeliers and, stuff like that, and great cocktail people with incredible palates, to do my research with them, and then bring samples back to people, have them taste it, see what they like, see what they don't like, see what fills a need. What can we make for bartenders that is a pain in the neck for them to make in their own bar that they don't even want to do? So, how can we take some of the lift? Being a bartender is really hard. So part of this, since I have a background in being a bar owner and a bartender and a bouncer and all this stuff, working in hospitality since I was 18, that was something I was really interested in as well, was how to make this work so that it could be a bartender's best friend, so they can have a trustworthy non-alcoholic option anytime they have somebody, as a guest, so they can still serve them a really elevated experience, for any guest, whether you're drinking or not. So that was a big part of it too. I wanted to validate that while I was working on recipes in the Hudson Valley. So I was popping back and forth between the Hudson Valley and New York. And, shout out to some of the people that, were gracious enough to spend time with me and give me their input. People like Joaquin Simo, of this legendary bar called Pouring Ribbons in New York City. Ivy Mix, who's an incredible cocktail maven of her own right, and many, many others in the hospitality industry. And so that was a big part of it too. You got to find people who know more than you do so that you can ask them questions, learn a little bit. And then I was applying some of what they were saying into the drinks themselves in the commercial kitchen and in Beacon and the Hudson Valley. So that was really the next step, kind of getting recipes ready while I was considering doing a Kickstarter.
Okay.
So, while I was putting all the pieces together for that, getting the Kickstarter ready to launch it, so that we can pay for our first equipment, our first bottling equipment, and kind of a first run. And that was kind of the next phase, until we got it live, early the next year.
Interesting. And were you still working full time at your day job? And yeah, how were you balancing that?
The juggle is real, Conrad. The juggle is real. It was a full-time job. It was my growth marketing agency, which is what Curious grew out of. So at the time I was doing marketing for clean food companies like Daily Harvest and Chomps and Health Warrior and a bunch of other ones. And because clean food is kind of my life mission, how do we feed billions of people stuff that energizes them and nourishes their body well, so that everybody can, do well and take care of their families. That's like really important stuff. And Curious is one expression of that, you know. And it grew out of that just on Kickstarter with my little lean, mean marketing team. Just a group of like three of us, just kind of like working on these different brand campaigns and helping direct to consumer businesses scale in clean food. And then Curious was one that we launched out of our little shop. Yeah.
It's amazing. So it was essentially it was your own brand, but it was also a client of your agency, and you're able to kind of like roll it into the same mix as if it's a client.
Yeah, it's kind of like a mix of different, a motley crew of people that were marketers and content people and branding people and stuff like that. It takes a village. Many, many, many people have, you know, we have the best team now too. I just have to say shout out to my team because they're incredible and they care so deeply about this mission and taking care of customers, and they just really go above and beyond.
Yeah, it's so clear that people really are the differentiator, and like the people involved are the competitive advantage. And I love the fact that you essentially set up a rapid prototyping, a rapid iteration process with other experts that were involved, but not directly involved in the making of the product. You're able to make something, test it, get notes, go back to it, make tweaks. And was that really the process early on? Was make it,
Yes.
get notes, tweak, iterate, and then rinse and repeat. And yeah, I think when you have these outside, especially experts, like you mentioned, you found people with incredible palates that you really trusted. You trusted their taste, and you're able to get product that you're like, okay, if these people like it, very, very, very high likelihood the masses are going to like it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think anybody who wants to drink something that's more than basic is going to be like, oh, there's a flavor for me, or several flavors for me. But interestingly, not all people are going to like every single Curious Elixirs flavors because some of them are bold. Like if you don't like smoky drinks, do not have Curious #5. If you don't like floral drinks, like don't have Curious #9, but there's so many people who do. Or if you don't like spicy drinks, don't have Curious #2. But people love a spicy drink. I know I do.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And there's something for everyone. Just because they might not like number 2, they'll like number 5 or they'll like number 7. So you have something for a different taste, and also for a different occasion, different times of year. People's preferences and tastes change throughout the year. Now we're coming into fall, having that, rich, earthy, or that rich, smoky flavor might be more, might be more appealing now that we're getting into the fall time, going into winter. And what was the sentiment like back then? So this is like what, 2013, 2014, you launched in 2015. This 10 years ago. Like this is before the NA, the non-alcoholic movement, where people like, you're making cocktails with no booze? Like what are you doing? Or were people like into it? Like what was the sentiment like?
It was a mixed bag of sentiment because some people were like, oh my God, finally somebody's making something for us. It was like this huge group of people that were hiding in plain sight, not being served well. And the restaurants that got behind us, pretty quickly made a ton of money and like the restaurants who didn't and the restaurants who still don't, they're leaving
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. Like it's crazy to me that it still hasn't moved faster than that it does because, I think that's a legacy of the stigma around drinking, which is too bad. But we've been breaking that just by 10 years of showing like, hey, life with less alcohol can be more fun, and those are the stories that we've sought to amplify. So the sentiment was definitely there from the beginning that life can be more fun with less booze. And I think that that's the story that is really resonating with people, both younger people and older people. People are shocked at how many different generations are drinking less. It's all of them, by the way. Spoiler alert. It's just that the top 10% of alcohol drinkers drink 75% of the alcohol. So think about that. Top 10% of drinkers drink 75% of the alcohol. That's a pretty small portion of the population when you think about it.
First.
And it goes across, every generation. But thankfully, people are like, hey, let me try this thing out. Let me try dry January. Let me try sober October. Let me try 6 weeks off and just see how I feel. And that's what I encourage everybody to do is just try it. See how you feel. If you're like, wow, I actually feel energized. Yeah, that's pretty likely for most people. Um, you were saying that earlier, Conrad. I mean, it's pretty natural for people to have like increased energy within 4 to 6 weeks of stopping drinking.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I love that. I love that notion of just give it a shot. Like it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. Take a little break. It's just like, trying to learn a language. Like, yeah, give it a shot for 4 to 6 weeks and see how it goes. Or, you're learning a new skill, you're learning, a new sport or a new instrument. I think it's so important to kind of challenge yourself and, push yourself out of your comfort zone. And I feel like sometimes with people, like with alcohol, it's like they don't even necessarily know that they're drinking it. It's just like, oh, I'm getting off work and it's just what I do. I just, pour myself a glass of wine. It's not necessarily in that moment. I'm like, oh, I want a glass of wine. It's just a habitual, almost like a mindless, routine of that's just what I do. Pour myself a glass of wine at 6 p.m.
So true. I've been trying to, well, not been trying, I have been succeeding in breaking one of my habits, which is to have like a little sweet treat every night, and I can still have a little sweet treat a few nights a week, but, like last night I had to fight it a little bit and I was like, no, like you're not having like the little sweet treat, make it special, like make it intentional. Um, and that's been something that's been feeling good, but still challenging. But then the next day I'm like, I made it. Like I
Yeah.
made it.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely am there with you with the sweets. Sometimes I'll like, I'll be like, okay, I'm having blueberries tonight. Like it's still still sweet, but it's coming from the fridge.
That's great. Blueberries is a great stuff. I love that.
Think like, you gotta find your little substitutes, your little tricks that work for you. Like it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. I think that's exactly like what Curious Elixirs does. It's like it's satisfying. It provides you that moment. You're still going through the routine of like pouring it into the glass, like, almost like the ceremony of pouring. Exactly. And drinking something different, unique, interesting. And I think a lot of people, they just need like a break. Like it's just like sometimes activities are just like a break. It's like, okay, this means my workday is over. And I think having an option like Curious Elixirs provides that and more. So you mentioned the Kickstarter. Was that successful? Is that what got you off the ground?
That's what got us off the ground. So yeah, we raised I think around $37,000. Um, and our goal was 25. And so that got us our first, 600 or 700 customers. And importantly, it got us our Curious Cocktail Club members, which is our monthly variety pack. And so then we had people we knew we were going to deliver new flavors to them and they were going to get a monthly box or, some of the backers at the higher end, we're getting a subscription. And that's been really key to getting that customer feedback constantly. I've read every review that's ever come in on Curious Elixirs, over 6,000 of them. And that feedback is invaluable, both the good and the bad, you know? And that's how we've worked for 10 years tirelessly to constantly improve our recipes, make them a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, and just keep improving, the quality of what they are. And so that's been a huge joy in my life to get that feedback and then incorporate it and see how it does, put it out there. And, I think a bunch of the flavors are really dialed in now, after a decade plus of refining.
Interesting. So you actually tweak flavors that were already launched out in the public and you'd refine them,
Constantly.
Wow.
Constantly.
Okay.
Yeah, constantly. The idea for the drink hasn't necessarily changed with, almost all of them. Like the one exception to that will be Curious number 3, which I'll talk about in a second. But most of the drinks have not changed in their conception much at all. Like Curious number 1 it's a Negroni Sbagliato. It's a lightly sparkling, bittersweet, herbaceous cocktail that's modeled after a top 5 selling cocktail, the Negroni, top 5 selling cocktail in the world. Another of the top 5, the margarita. So Curious number 2 is like our spin on, what if a margarita and a dark and stormy had a baby, and that baby was, and that was a spicy one. So that one is one that's been fun to refine too. The spice level on that, is it too spicy? Is it spicy enough? Does it have enough salinity to it, enough salt to make it feel margarita-y, enough ginger burn to give it the dark and stormy? Like, these are all things that we're tweaking constantly. And, and each batch comes out a little different because this is all real food. This is all real plants, So like, that's also part of the fun and also part of the challenge, because the people also want something that's consistent, most of the time. And we have to remind some of them and be like, yeah, this batch, might have been a little bit spicier, or this batch might have been a touch more bitter, or it might be a touch more sweet. But that's also part of the fun. It's like fine wines, sometimes bottle to bottle, it can be a little different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what happens when you're working with real food. Ginger's not going to be the exact same every time. It's going to have those differences. If you're working with different peppers and different spices, they're going to have different levels every time, depending on the time of year, where they're grown, how they're grown, all of that. Yeah, that's interesting. So has that been a challenge, or do you think it's a advantage to have it be have a little bit of variety from batch to batch?
I think it keeps things really exciting, you know, because the people who are going to be with you are going to be with you. And, at the same time, they've always got to know that we're working tirelessly to constantly improve how delicious they are, how they make you feel, and how easy it is to get them to you. So I think that the people really, our curious customers, they really understand that. And there's such an incredibly loyal group of them. And it's incredible to speak with them and hear what they have to say.
Yeah, that's amazing that you really lean in on the community, lean in on the customers. You're creating product for them. Has it ever been challenging? Because taste is so subjective. Everyone's tastes are different. How do you find that common thread with the masses where it's like, okay, this product is going to resonate with most people?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I built the roadmap for all of these drinks based on cocktail archetypes, So it's not necessarily people telling us what they want and then we make it. It's kind of what has society told us they enjoy to drink over the course of generations, So each one of the, like, Curious number 6 is the archetype of a tropical tiki drink from the Caribbean. Curious number 9 is the archetype of a French sparkling rosé, but with another couple of, inspirations in there as well, like California countryside with the California poppy, and the Kana from South Africa, and some of the kind of like the chalky, more mineral aspects of their wine down there. So, there are different archetypes for each one of these drinks. So it's more around that than it is around people telling us kind of what they want to drink, if that makes sense. Like the people have already spoken with their choices over the generations.
Yeah, so it's like you're looking at these classics. You're like, these are classics that are known to be popular. Let's go and reinvent that, make it our own, make it non-alcoholic, add some additional beneficial ingredients. But
Yeah, and always tweak it a little bit,
tweaking it,
like,
yeah,
yeah, we're not trying to make exactly a French 75 with Curious number 7. We're like, let's infuse it with elderflower and lavender and jasmine and make it, a little dash of like a Hugo Spritz, which is like suddenly all the rage. Like, it was Aperol Spritz for years, and now Hugo Spritzes are really raging, and we happen to make something that's perfect for that in non-alcoholic form. So I wanted these to also be adaptable, where you can use them in your own recipes or just enjoy them cold and add a garnish. It's kind of a choose your own adventure with that too, where like, I like people who like to tinker. I'm a tinkerer myself, clearly. So, it's fun. It's like, you can meal prep, but how many different ways are you going to like shake it up with this particular meal prep this week, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Have you always been a tinkerer? Were you raised in a family of tinkerers and entrepreneurs?
My dad was an entrepreneur. I would say that, I've been a tinkerer for, pretty much as long as I can remember. Whether it's in the kitchen and, you know, cooking up some of my own recipes from the age of 7. My mom thankfully let me do that, which was really fun to explore. Um, and my dad started a few different businesses. And so my brother and I both were entrepreneurs from a young age, kind of like 10, 11 years old. We each had our own businesses. Um,
So cool.
and so that's kind of like in our blood too. Like, I think from you too, you were saying your parents started a company.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing, just having that exposure. I remember sitting in on, you know, planning meetings and finance meetings, and they're building out a space, so looking at the blueprints, and yeah, they'd work until 2 in the morning. I'd be asleep on the couch and then drive home altogether. So when you get exposed to that, it's kind of hard to not be drawn to it and just see it as just magical, like building something from nothing.
It is. It is magical. It's so fun to see like what people dream up and then what they do with it, And I saw my father do the same thing. I mean, he started, you know, an internet media company before people knew what the internet was. It's like in the 90s, it's like it's crazy. And and he sold it for a little bit of money, but like, this was before kind of like the huge VC, stuff that we know of. So it's just amazing what people can dream up. And, now with the internet, people can see so many different stories of people to model and, which is really, really cool. Like my first business was actually harness the power of the internet as well. It was, I would go onto bulletin board systems and get the special moves to different video games and then print them out on pieces of paper and sell them at school and in the local arcades. Um, Basically to finance my arcade habit and video game spend. So
That's how it goes. Yeah. Always hustling, always tinkering. I think the thing that's so inspiring, especially about your story with Curious Elixirs, is it kind of started as a hobby and a passion. You're like, this is something that's really important to me personally, but you were able to scale it to a sizable business. You're distributed at some of the best restaurants in the country, some of the best retailers in the world. What was that process like? Like taking it from, your kitchen to the Kickstarter and then actually scaling it up into multi-million dollar business.
Well, it was every day is school, basically. When you're starting a business, when you run your own business, you're learning constantly and you're, trying to synthesize your experiences back into it so that you can do better, you know, today than you did yesterday. And I think that's much of life. But scaling it, definitely had peaks and valleys. It definitely had aspects of being on a roller coaster ride. And every, every 6 to 18 months, you're going to have some sort of near death experience with your company, oftentimes. And as you go along, you learn how to have fewer of those and you learn how to not take everything so personally or so emotionally that can kind of distract you from what the outcome is that you actually want. And so I say that because I've had terrible anxiety, at times where, you lose $100,000 worth of ingredients in a night because of a freak fire that happens in your freezer. It doesn't make any sense, but okay, your freezer went up in flames and now you lost $100,000 and what are you going to do? You know, but when these things happen, you know, I've learned to kind of take a breath and maybe have a chuckle. Shit. Because you're just like, you can't make this stuff up sometimes, you know, life is going to happen to your business. And you kind of got to learn to roll with it and have great insurance and have a little more buffer than you think you need before you start. That's my number one piece of advice is like, do you think you need $40,000 to launch your business? Get 60,
Yeah.
or adjust your costs down so that you don't have to spend so much just trying to get your business going. A lot of times people are like, I've got to have all of these pieces together, in order for the perfect business to start. There is no perfect business. It's always going to be a bit of a shit show when you're first starting. So just expect that and know that you're going to need contingency budgets. A lot of times people don't say this, but you need a bigger contingency than you think you need so that you can weather that storm and then you can weather the next storm,
Yeah.
because sometimes you get storms back to back, and if you're not prepared for it, you're going to be out of business.
Yeah.
So make sure you have enough oxygen for your business, and cash is oxygen.
Yeah, for sure. And it seems like you just need to be in it for the long haul, essentially. Like if you can weather those storms, just keep rolling with the punches. The longer you're in it, the longer you're pushing forward, the higher likelihood you'll be able to get to smoother sailing at the end.
That's true. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to before anybody starts a business, I'm like, is this something you want to work on for the next 10 years?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, then strongly consider why that is before you jump into that particular venture. Yes, things are moving faster than ever, and there are different ways to run a business. You can raise a ton of money and build a product and sell it and get out in 5 years, but minimum 5 years for people, like time horizon for a business. Anything shorter than that is kind of like you're probably fooling yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And was there any big break with Curious Elixirs? Big retail moment, big distributor moment, getting into a key restaurant, any write-ups? Like, was there a big break that changed the trajectory?
I think it was 100 breaks, 100 good lucky breaks. Some of it is, you know, um, making enough of a splash to get noticed. Like when we first got into the Wall Street Journal, that was a pretty big deal, and one that just kind of came to us because she had heard something from a friend, and you're just like, amazing, thank you so much. That was a pretty big turning point, I'd say, like in the press. Because after that, then we were featured, 7 or 8 different times in the New York Times, and those have all been kind of like pretty amazing moments when they happen. And what other kind of key moments I think that we had where you're like, oh yeah, the first time that the French Laundry like ordered Curious for their restaurant, one of the best restaurants in the world, I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, okay. And then when that happened again with like Alinea in Chicago, you're like, wow, this is incredible. Like, I guess people with really amazing palates and incredible senses of hospitality kind of understand, what we're making here, and want to make it. Yeah, they want to make it. So those were definitely some times where you're like, holy crap. And then like Neil Patrick Harris, like, the day after Christmas, just like pouring a Curious number 5 on his Instagram story. And I was like, and, and then misspelling our name. And I was like, oh, the tag, but I think that was the universe, like showing me like, just enjoy the moment. It's not good. It's never going to be perfect. So just enjoy it when good things happen to you. That's what I took away from the Neil Patrick Harris moment. I was like, yes, no, yes.
Like, just enjoy it. So he mistagged it, spelled the brand name wrong, and didn't actually tag the Instagram account.
It was my fault for using a word like elixirs,
Oh man, I can see that roller coaster like so clearly. Man, French Laundry, that's huge. I mean, they're, considered the best restaurant in the world. Was that just reached out to you? Did you have
they reached out to us cold. Didn't approach them. It was very early on, and one of their sommeliers just reached out and was like, hey, this sounds fascinating. I think we targeted them on Instagram. I think it was an Instagram ad. That hooked one of the somms from the French Laundry on either Instagram or Facebook, one of the two. And we were like, yes, we would love and that was kind of amazing to experience. And, then it's just like a lot of little moments too of just seeing like one great review from somebody who just tried Curious from the first time and they're like, wow, I can finally like unwind without wine, and this changed the game for me, at night, and they feel, and they send that through as like a little thank you that like, it means the world to our team when we get these notes, and it's pretty, it makes all the work and all the roller coasters worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're really changing people's lives. I mean, some people, their relationship with alcohol really disrupts the life that they want to live. And now there's an option where they can have an incredible experience without the alcohol associated with it. So yeah, I can see those little moments, getting that review of, I don't need to drink wine anymore. I'm not drinking beer anymore. I could really see that being so powerful. Um, and then have you all raised any outside funding as you've scaled?
We do not have any outside funding. We just did, just did the Kickstarter, and then I, funded it off of the profits, and off of cash flow. And that's something that I encourage people to is charge what you need it to be costing in order to make your business work, you know? Um, and some people are like, wow, that's a premium price that you're charging. I'm like, yes, it is, but getting blood oranges from Sicily takes some money,
You get what you pay for.
yeah, you get what you pay for, and I think we're light years separate from everything else.
That's amazing to reach the scale and you're just taking profits from the year before, reinvesting it, expanding inventory, expanding reach. And to this date, like what's your biggest channel? Is it like retail? Is it wholesale? Is it restaurant? Is it D2C?
Shipping straight to people's homes and businesses is still like the biggest channel for us. We're thrilled that, we just brought on a new partner with Sprouts, amazing grocery store chain. They're carrying Curious Zero, our Lion's Mane lager. But shipping straight to people's homes and businesses is still the number one channel. Although, we're looking for people to join our team to help us get into like key retail anchors and places like that. Those are places where it's just now like the right time to start putting out like a premium non-alcoholic, functional craft beverage like Curious. People are just now starting to understand like, oh, there are like really amazing premium options now. And wait, this can make my body feel better. Wow, that's a thing. Like
Yeah.
that's just now the time. And so we're looking to expand our team in that. And along with working with more restaurant partners and like all of our friends at the James Beard Foundation and stuff like that. 'Cause we're the official non-alc partner for them. And we love working with chefs to, pair elixirs to their menus. And, it's a huge responsibility of ours to like help restaurants and venues and concert halls and,
Yeah.
um, to make more money, by serving their customers even better than they thought they could with what we do. High quality non-alcoholic alternatives should be at every social function, every single one. Then there's countless occasions where Curious belongs.
That's that discoverability as well. When you're in the moment, you're like, I want an amazing beverage, but I don't want alcohol. And it's just like presented to you in that moment. You're like, yes, let's do it. You take that first step and the rest is kind of history with that. So like being there in those moments, um, when people are really looking for that option, I feel like was so powerful. How are you all scaling D2C? Is it mostly, I mean, you come from a digital growth background, so I'm sure that's helped, but is it,
It's all the usual suspects of like digital channels that you would expect, like paid social, search, and we do, an increasing amount of content to help people understand how to enjoy these best. And yeah, I think I mean, we also love Curious being a supporting character in creative people's lives. So we do things like, um, the Curious Creators Grants we're hoping to bring back next year, which is basically for, people who work in various art forms applying for grants to work on whatever it is they want to create in the world, you know, whether that's art or fashion or music or food, written words, etc. Um, there are so many different art forms, and that's something that we're committed to, as well for, as we scale, is to make sure that we have things that stay true to changing how we drink socially. Um, the biggest thing we do all year, which is super fun, is the Great Curious Cocktail Party, which is we throw 150 parties in 150 cities all on one night.
Oh,
Yeah. And so we have like a lot of our curious customers and our retail partners, they all apply to throw parties, and then we send them a huge party pack. And then we, you know, have an amazing DJ and performers, and we like to get down without getting wasted. It's super fun. So that'll be coming up in May. That'll be coming up in May again. Yeah.
yeah, right as the weather starts getting nice across the country. And how big is community for Curious?
Oh, millions of people. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. They like to, some of them want to remain anonymous.
Yeah, that's amazing. And do you feel like the community and creating that culture has been one of the levers that's really supported the business as well?
Yeah. Yeah. And keeping things fun, and, cause life can be very challenging at times. And there are other times where you just want to you want to kick back and understand that you deserve a moment to unwind. You deserve a moment to feel satisfied, after working a hard day or a hard night. And you can do that in so many different ways, but our way is to do it without alcohol and do it with, the power of plants instead. The power of plants and community, So that's why I made these bottles to have 2 servings, so you can split one with a friend or a little extra for you if you're by yourself. It's all good.
Yeah, that's how people really bond is through drink, through food,
Yeah.
being able to share those experiences together, um, talk about it, form those that commonality. I think it's really, really powerful. And for you personally, to grow and scale this company, how was that process to becoming, a CEO, leader of a big company? I know you've been an entrepreneur and you're leading a marketing agency before this. Is this the biggest company that you've been a part of at the helm so far?
That Yeah, it's certainly the biggest company that I've ever run. I've run teams of people before, but this is the first time where I'm, leading a team. It's been an education. Like I said, every day is school, and I love that about it. It's been phenomenal to learn how to work with people and to empower them. And it's with tons of challenges, Conrad. Countless. Every day there's going to be something that knocks you back a little bit. Even on a great day where so many good things are going, there's going to be something that's not perfect, and that's okay. That's what I've really learned, is to understand that nothing is ever finished, and that the work that we get to do is a privilege, and that it's not always going to go perfectly, and that's okay. That then you learn from it and you keep going. And I think that's what I've tried to instill in my team, is the notion of constant little improvements, So, and you're going to get closer to the platonic ideal, but you'll never get there. You just keep getting closer and closer. It's like America. You're trying to make it more perfect. It's never going to be perfect. Just make it a little more perfect. Just a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think that's so true. And what do you hope people feel when they try Curious? And what do you hope people feel when they hear the Curious brand 10, 20 years from now?
Mm. What I want people to feel when they drink Curious Elixirs is to feel more themselves than they've ever felt before. Where they find something that unlocks in that moment of unwinding, and hopefully with, a plant ally like ashwagandha in Curious number 3. Sometimes that just unlocks things in people where they just feel like more themselves than they've ever felt before. They feel calm and confident, you know? And I think that's amazing when I've heard that feedback from people. Or seeing people that when they try Curious number 9 with Kana and they're just feeling slightly lifted in a way that feels so good to them, that it's not a high, it's just like pleasant, and you can feel like more fully embodied as yourself. So that's really what I want people to feel, is like feel the most themselves they've ever felt.
Yeah. If there's one piece of advice that you give yourself after everything you know from starting Curious the last 10 years, what would be that one piece of advice you'd give your past self?
Focus on the outcome that you desire a little bit every day. Just for 5 minutes. Just for 5 minutes. Yeah, take action. So it's basically like focus on the outcome you desire every day, and take action for 5 minutes. And magic happened. For me, it was tinkering in my kitchen, just tinkering. And that tinkering led to whatever this is.
I love it. I think that's so true. And it's that incremental progress of feeling it, thinking it, believing in it, taking actions. Little baby steps lead to marathons over a long period of time. Well, JW, thank you so much for taking the time. You shared so much insight, so much wisdom. Really appreciate all the amazing stories and learnings that you shared in this episode.
Thanks, Conrad. This has been so fun.
That was JW Wiseman, the founder and CEO of Curious Elixirs. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to click that follow button on your podcast app so you never miss a new episode. If you're looking for more practical takeaways to grow your brand, subscribe to the Brand Study newsletter, packed with exclusive content, deep brand analysis, and real-world insights you can actually use. Sign up today at thebrandstudy.co. I'm Conrad, and I'll see you next time.